You bought a clematis because you saw the photos. Walls draped in purple, fences buried under blooms the size of your hand. So you brought one home, you dug a hole, you popped it in the ground, and nothing. A few sad leaves, maybe one flower if you were lucky. Then the whole thing collapsed overnight like someone unplugged it. Here's the truth nobody tells you at the garden center. Clematis is not a difficult plant. It's a misunderstood one. Almost everything you instinctively want to do to it is exactly wrong, because clematis breaks the rules every other plant follows. Today, I'm going to walk you through the 5 mistakes that quietly kill clematis before it ever has a chance to show off, and every single one of them is fixable, even if your plant is already in the ground. Stick around to the end because the last mistake is the one that turns a vine full of buds into a vine full of bare green leaves, and almost nobody catches it. Let's get into it. Mistake number 1. You left the roots out in the heat. You've probably heard the old saying about clematis. It likes its head in the sun and its feet in the shade. People repeat it constantly. Almost nobody explains what it actually means or what happens when you ignore it. Here's the real version. The top of a clematis, the leaves and the flowers, desperately wants sun. 6 hours a day is the goal. That's the head in the sun part, and most people get that right. They plant it in a bright spot and walk away feeling accomplished. But the root zone is a different animal entirely. Clematis roots hate getting hot and they hate drying out. When you leave the base of the plant exposed to baking afternoon sun, the soil heats up, moisture evaporates, the roots get stressed, and a stressed clematis stops flowering and starts sulking. You end up with a vine that's technically alive but refuses to perform. The fix is almost embarrassingly simple, and you have options. You can lay a flat stone or a couple of paving slabs over the root area. They shade the soil and hold moisture beautifully. You can plant something low and leafy right in front of the base, like a small hardy geranium or some low perennials to cast shade over the roots, or you can just keep a generous layer of mulch over the soil. Bark, compost, leaf mold, whatever you have, keeping it pulled back an inch or so from the actual stem so it doesn't sit wet against it. Pick one. Any of them works. The point is that bare, sun-blasted soil at the base of a clematis is a slow-motion problem, and a stone or a handful of mulch solves it in about 30 seconds. Mistake number 2. You gave it the wrong thing to climb. Walk past a lot of struggling clematis and you'll see the same thing, a beautiful plant flopping around at the base of a fence post or a pergola leg with nowhere to go while the gardener wonders why it won't climb. Here's what's happening, and it comes down to how clematis climbs. Clematis doesn't have sticky pads like ivy. It doesn't twine its whole stem around things like a runner bean. Clematis climbs with its leaf stalks. The little stems that hold each leaf reach out, touch something, and curl around it like tiny fingers. That's the entire mechanism. And here's the catch. Those leaf tendrils can only grip something thin. We're talking about the diameter of a pencil at most. A piece of wire, a length of twine, a thin trellis batten, a bamboo cane. They wrap around those instantly. What they absolutely cannot grip is anything thick. A fence post, a brick wall, a chunky pergola leg, a tree trunk. The tendrils reach out, find nothing they can wrap their fingers around, and the plant just slides off and flops. It's not being lazy, you've literally given it nothing to hold. So if you want clematis on a wall, you don't plant it and hope. You first attach a grid of wires or a section of thin trellis to that wall and then let the plant climb the wires. If you want it up a thick post or pergola leg, wrap that post in netting or coil some wire around it first, giving those tendrils something pencil thin to grab. Get the support right before the plant needs it and clematis becomes one of the easiest climbers there is. Get it wrong, and the most vigorous vine in the world will just sit there in a heap. Mistake number 3. You planted it flush against the wall. This one is sneaky because the spot looks perfect. You've got a lovely wall or a fence. You imagine the clematis climbing all over it, so you dig your hole right up against the base of it and tuck the plant in tight. And then it struggles, and you can't work out why because everything else seems right. The problem is something most people have never heard of, the rain shadow. The strip of ground directly against a wall or a solid fence is one of the driest places in your entire garden. The structure blocks the rain from reaching it, and worse, it pulls moisture out of the soil. Brick and stone foundations are thirsty, so you've taken a plant that wants consistently moist roots and you've planted it in the one spot guaranteed to stay bone dry no matter how much rain. The fix changes everything, and it's just a matter of where you put the hole. Plant your clematis at least 12 to 18 inches out from the base of the wall or fence, out where the rain actually lands. Then, instead of planting it straight up, angle the whole plant so it leans toward the support. Lay the stem at a gentle slant and let it travel back to the wall to start climbing. The roots stay out in the good, moist soil where they're happy, and the top still gets to climb exactly where you wanted it. Same wall, same view, completely different result. The plant just needs its feet planted in living soil instead of a desert.
Mistake number 4. You planted it at the same depth as the pot. This is the big one, and it's the mistake that feels the most right, which is exactly why it's so dangerous. Every gardening instinct you have says the same thing. When you take a plant out of its pot, you put it in the ground at the same level it was sitting before. Match the soil line. Don't bury the stem. That rule keeps roses happy, keeps tomatoes happy, keeps almost everything happy. Clematis is the exception. With clematis, you want to plant it deeper, burying the base of the stem a good 2 to 3 inches below the surface, so the top of the root ball sits well under the soil line. Why? 2 reasons, and they're both worth understanding instead of just memorizing. The first is clematis wilt. This is that horror movie collapse where a healthy-looking vine wilts and dies almost overnight, usually from a fungal infection that attacks at the base of the stem. When you plant deep, you give the plant insurance. Those buried nodes below the soil can push out brand new shoots if the top growth gets hit. A shallow planted clematis that gets wilt has nothing in reserve. A deep planted one shrugs, sends up fresh stems, and carries on like nothing happened. The second reason is simply more plant. Every buried node is a potential growing point. Plant deep and you're building a fuller, bushier, multi-stemmed vine from below ground, instead of relying on one fragile stem trying to do all the work. So, if your clematis is going in fresh, dig the hole deeper than feels natural and sink that crown. And if it's already planted at pot level, don't panic and rip it out. Next time you're topping up the bed, mound a few inches of soil or compost over the base. You can fix this one retroactively, and your plant will thank you for it. Mistake number 5. You pruned it without knowing your group. I saved this one for last because it's the mistake that breaks the most hearts. You do everything right all year. The plant is healthy, it's covered in growth, you're finally about to get the show you were promised. And then someone tells you clematis needs cutting back. So you grab the secateurs in early spring, cut the whole thing down hard, and proceed to remove every single flower bud the plant had been saving for you. A summer of nothing from one well-meaning snip. Here's what almost nobody explains. There is no single way to prune clematis, because clematis comes in 3 pruning groups and they want completely opposite treatment. Group 1 blooms early in spring on the growth it made the previous year. These are your early flowering types, the ones that burst into bloom before most things have woken up. Cut these back hard in spring and you've cut off the very stems that were going to flower. The rule for Group 1 is simple. Barely prune at all. Just tidy up dead or messy growth right after it finishes flowering, and otherwise leave it alone. Group 2 is the big flowered showstoppers, the ones with dinner plate blooms in early summer. These flower on last year's stems for the first flush, then again later on new growth. They want a light prune in early spring, just trimming back to a strong pair of buds, removing anything dead or weak, and never going in hard. Group 3 is the easiest of all, and it's the late summer crowd that flowers entirely on the current year's growth. These you can cut down hard every spring, almost to the ground, and they'll race back up and flower beautifully. In fact, they need that hard cut or they turn into a bare tangle that only blooms way up at the top. So, before you ever touch your clematis with secateurs, find out which group it's in. The plant label usually tells you, and if you've lost it, just watch when it flowers. Early spring means leave it alone, early summer means trim lightly, late summer means cut it back hard. Match the cut to the group and your clematis will reward you every single year. Guess at it and you'll spend a whole season staring at green leaves wondering where the flowers went. So, let's recap what actually separates a clematis that takes over a wall from one that limps along and dies. You plant it deeper than feels right, so it's protected and full from below the soil. You shade and cool its roots while its head soaks up the sun. You keep it out of the dry rain shadow and lean it back towards its support. You give its tendrils something thin enough to grab onto before it ever needs it. And you learn your pruning group before the secateurs ever come out. None of these are hard, not one of them costs much. They're just the handful of things that go against your instincts, which is exactly why so many gardeners get them wrong and assume clematis is fussy. It isn't, it just plays by its own rules, and now you know them. If this cleared up a few things for you, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. We keep things simple and practical around here. No fluff, just plants that actually thrive. And tell me down in the comments, which of these 5 mistakes had you been making? Be honest. I'm betting it's number 4, because almost everyone gets that one wrong. Now go fix your clematis. It's been waiting for you.